Moment. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Heather Dosman. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. For those of you that are listening on iTunes, I always tell you guys, please check out the YouTube page as well, only because right now you'll see Heather has brought her entourage, which is my neighbor's dog, Chloe, and Chloe seems to quite like Heather.
Yeah, we're going to be best friends for this whole podcast. It's going to be great.
And Heather didn't know it, but she's taking bits of Chloe home with her with all of the hair that she's shedding on to Heather. So thank you so much, one, for being so patient with Chloe.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you so much for coming onto the show. I know that I have a ton of questions for you. I'm super intrigued by what you do and why you do it, but I also know the listeners will really dig this conversation as well. So thank you for your time. As I say ad nauseum, I'm a big believer time is the most valuable thing that you and I have. So thank you so much for donating yours to myself, this podcast, and the listeners as well.
And thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so glad that you're here. So it is somewhat early in the day-ish.
Yeah.
I'm always intrigued by morning routines and people in this space, in this industry, in food and bev, because a lot of times morning routines don't really exist because a lot of us are working into the wee hours of the morning. So our mornings look a little bit differently dynamically because we're actually not usually getting up until afternoon. So I know that what you're doing, so I don't know. I assume right now what you're doing is a little bit different. You're not really demanded to be working till 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning. So what does a morning routine look for you right now? Like how did today start for you?
Today I got up, I had my shower. I usually don't eat a huge breakfast, but usually like toast or yogurt and fruit or something like that.
Okay.
And my mornings are usually pretty quiet. I like respond to all the emails that I get for events or communicating between my employees and stuff like that. But I usually try to take at least an hour of just like stretching, relaxing, tea.
You time.
Me time.
Slowly getting into the day.
Yeah, which I think is really important when you're in this industry. We work long hours, and taking that hour to like listen to your body. You're like, oh, I'm sore. I need to stretch this part of my body so that I can like actually function for the rest of the day. I think it's really important and something that not a lot of chefs tend to do because you're tired, you worked late,
right.
You rush into going to work and getting things done. So taking that time at the beginning and I think at the end of the day is really important for people in our industry, I think.
Yeah, like the wind down and the wind up for your day, like preparing yourself for whatever you have ahead of you, but also that wind down after your man. I know myself coming from the industry, more front of house experience. But also in the back of house as well. Like when you finish a really intense service, like it's a pretty big high. You need somehow to come down off of that, and hopefully in a really healthy and responsible way.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other thing we can get into, a whole other conversation.
Oh, for sure.
But do you find now with your business, are you more conscious now than you were, say, 5 years ago about how you start your day and how you end your day?
Absolutely. And I think working for myself and doing freelance and doing events gives me the opportunity to structure my day how I want it to be. Whereas working in restaurants, I didn't necessarily have that opportunity because I had to be in at a specific time and didn't necessarily have enough time or space in between getting home late because you worked late and getting up and being able to take that time for yourself.
Yeah.
So
how did you make the change from the traditional path of like going and working in a kitchen in the industry to now being your own boss, having your own business, doing these like freelance or pop-up dinners, if you will? How did that happen? Like, how did this manifest itself as business?
When I grew up in Edmonton in
Okay.
Alberta,
Yeah.
and so I did my chef apprenticeship there. I had a group of chef friends there where we did a pop-up series for a few years called Staff Meal, where once a month we would all get together so that we would have creative opportunities to do something different outside of our like normal job where it can be pretty repetitive in the restaurant industry. So the five of us did one event for, I think it was maybe 2 years,
Okay.
one a month, in various locations. And that kind of gave me the background and opportunity to be able to transition into what I'm doing now, because we just experimented and there was five of us. So it made it a lot easier to get over the learning curve of like, how do you organize an event and how
Right.
do you do all those different things? And as a like fun side project, it set all of us up to be more successful, I think, because we got our names out there in the industry. My friends have successful restaurants in Edmonton, like Bira and
Drawing a blank. It
Drawing a
happens. It happens when you have a
blank.
microphone
Yeah,
in you.
I'm like, oh,
We'll put it in the show notes after the podcast.
yes.
But yeah, that's cool. I think it's so neat to have an opportunity, like you said, to kind of test the market, but as a group, and then learn different avenues that you probably wouldn't be exposed to if you were just doing the traditional thing of either being like a junior sous or a line cook or whatever it is. Going
Yeah,
out there and really kind of testing, what does the market want? How do we do this? How do we execute? How do we make money? All those things.
exactly. And so I was finding in Vancouver, working in different restaurants here, that there wasn't a lot of opportunity for cooks that are like sous chefs to really get their name out there, because, you know, the restaurant is usually very supportive of the executive chef or the owner, this person. And I think it is a very important stepping stone to be able to do your own events, to get the publicity to be able to open your own space or do work for yourself or figure out what you really want to do after you've kind of established your base learning curve in restaurants.
And also build confidence as well in your ability to do those things.
Absolutely.
I don't know off the top of my head any businesses that would do that, but I feel like as a restaurant consultant, I would love to consult people on, you should be doing that. You should be incentivizing your staff and highlighting them. Like, give someone the opportunity to write a menu for a Friday night or a Saturday night and allow them to speak to it and tell the story of, I think there's so much opportunity there, which I think, and again, this get off a whole other topic, but I think that sort of mindset in the industry will allow for a flourishing, very abundant industry where we have people that really care and want to be in this space, where it's like sexy again to be in the space, where it's not just about, grinding away 10-hour, 14-hour days with little to no accolades. Being celebrated a bit, I think, is really smart.
Yeah, and I think it's important for mental health and well-being also to like be seen and to be heard in your work environment. And if more owners could support their staff in doing that, I fully support it, because I think everyone is more engaged in their work when they feel like they have input.
Yeah, I feel like what they're doing is actually important outside of just prepping and making sure the plate is hot.
Exactly.
So explain to me right now, and the listeners as well, if you can, what your business is called, so people can check you out. But then two, what are you doing with your business? What are you finding is your ideal client? What are you executing on the regular?
All right. So that's always a little tricky with my business, but I can give you a general idea.
Yeah.
My business is called Existential Eating. My website is existentialeating.com. And there you can find a calendar where we post all the different events and collaborations that we do. And the idea behind Existential Eating is to give people opportunity and to build a community of like-minded people who are looking to experiment or to create publicity with each other by creating a community together and having events that are somewhat accessible or fundraisers or highlighting people that normally don't get highlighted in media, or collaborations between artists and chefs or musicians. And we're kind of moving more into that in this new year. But so basically I have a bunch of different chefs that I work with that we do events together. They're all safer spaces for minority groups and people who aren't necessarily supported in other aspects of the restaurant industry. And also just kind of creating more of a community between the chefs of Vancouver. I find often there are situations where everyone just shit dogs each other and there isn't necessarily that camaraderie that I've had in the past in different cities and in different relationships within the industry. So by doing this, hopefully we can all come together and support each other and build a happier and healthier community.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a message that I hear often on this show when dealing with chefs, head chefs, and different entrepreneurs. But I still wonder when we will see that change and see those silos broken, because I really do feel like it's an issue that's holding us back as an industry. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a local chef who will remain unnamed at the moment, but he was quite upset with the lack of camaraderie, like you said, in the city. He said he feels like people are more concerned with their restaurant in particular being number one in the magazine, as opposed to Vancouver's food scene as a whole being number one in the world.
Exactly.
And he feels like we have the opportunity here with just like our terroir and just with the talent we have here as well to really put ourselves on the map with the Copenhagens and the New Yorks and those places. But he feels like we're kind of getting in our own way by not working together and not sitting down and saying, okay, what are we trying to do here as an industry as a whole?
Absolutely.
We're more concerned with, bums in seats on a Friday night, which I get. I do get, and I'm sensitive to that. But I feel like there's so much potential power and abundance in what you're talking about and bringing people together and having those conversations and giving a platform for everyone to come commune and figure out what are we actually doing here? What do we want to be doing as a collective?
Exactly.
Do you feel like people are responsive? Like what are you hearing? Like what's the dialogue at your events when you're eavesdropping on conversations, or are you leading that dialogue from the moment someone is exposed to what existential eating is?
It depends on the event and the space that we're doing it in. Where every event is kind of different and every space is different. So when I was working with Juice Bar for the past year, we were trying to make a fun, accessible environment that is casual, but also has high quality things that you normally wouldn't be able to get. Like Sean marks up his natural wine less than you would normally in a restaurant so that it's more accessible and people can try quite a few of them. And our food program was quite cheap considering we were using organic and trying to create a community of people who appreciate those things but can't necessarily afford them all the time. Like a lot of industry people, I find, especially chefs, because of things like day rates and Vancouver being expensive, can't really afford to go out and eat nice things or try all of these natural wines that you're serving to the customers every day because you can't afford it. But creating environments like Juice Bar or fundraising pop-ups that I've done in the past with Museum Eats, or it gives people an opportunity to try those things and eat those things and check out. We had a rotating chef system in the past at Juice Bar. So they got to check out a whole bunch of different chefs' foods while trying all these natural wines, which is inspiring to the young cooks that are coming to Juice Bar, or the wine,
Mm-hmm.
the sommeliers.
Right.
They're like, oh, I never thought of trying that type of food with that type of wine. That's
Right.
really interesting. So just kind of creating dialogue about different aspects of the industry and making it accessible to people in the industry to be able to be inspired or try something new for themselves, or maybe try to do an event for themselves. I've had a lot of cooks approach me. So I guess it's a very industry focused support project.
Right. Do you find that can be a hindrance at all? Do you find that by making it more, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, so feel free to interject, but by making it more of an industry focused event, are you missing out on opportunities to involve the general population, the general public, because they feel a little bit intimidated by, they don't really know the language, the slang that we use in this industry, and it's a bunch of chefs and bartenders. So when they walk in, they're a bit intimidated because they don't conceptualize what you guys are doing as well as everyone else that's in there. So do you try and speak to Gen Pop as well, or is this purposeful and mindful? You want to create this space for people in this industry?
I do think it is accessible to the general population, and it depends on the event as well.
Right.
Juice Bar definitely has a following outside of industry people.
Mm-hmm.
And my other events that I do with Swallowtail Supper Club, or the events that I host myself, are accessible to the general public. I do like to have a balance between those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think like making high quality food accessible to the general public is really important, and kind of creating conversation in that population about where our food comes from and why does my beet salad cost $8 and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And engaging people with farmers and different ingredients, focusing on supporting awesome projects in our city
Mm-hmm.
with the fundraisers. So I do think it is very accessible to the general public and supportive of them if they are interested in food and into trying something new.
Right. I like that. That's still it's inclusive. Speaking of farmers, last week I met with Yvonne and Dean from the local farm, and I feel like he mentioned your name. Did you meet him like a day or two before? He's at Hastings
Oh, yeah.
Park. He's the biodynamic microgreens and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at the market and I needed some greens for some events that I was doing. And we often buy their stuff because it's the middle of winter, and where else are you going to get lettuce?
Yeah. And it's beautiful too.
And it's really beautiful.
Yeah. So shout out to Dean and Yvonne at the local farm. They're out of Ladner, but you can find them at the farmer's market. If you're local here in Vancouver, at the farmer's market, and their product is just, we have some of their sunflower microgreens right now in our place, and it's just, oh my God, delicious.
Yeah. It really livens up the winter.
Yeah,
it
does.
You need something with those root vegetables. So.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, it's a beautiful
fantastic.
product, and it's so cool to see them doing food with what most people are using that technology for right now would be marijuana.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Cannabis, and they're doubling down on food, which is great for you and I, because we get to then purchase and eat these delicious and nutrient dense products, which are so great. Like you said, 12 months of the year, which as a chef is so cool to be able to get the access to those things in January, February.
Absolutely. It really like ups your game a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it does for sure. Are there any other local businesses or farms that we can highlight here on the show that you really enjoy dealing with, that really like light you up? Not to put you on the
So
spot,
many.
but yeah.
There's so many. I One of my favorite farms is Cropthorn Farm.
Yeah.
Lydia is just amazing. She's such a trooper. Their product is really consistent and well grown, and they take care of their farm and each other really well. Their staff is always super lovely. I get their CSA,
Oh, cool.
so just having the opportunity to try different things, and it's kind of like a surprise box every time. So I think the best way to enrich your life is through trying new things and investing into something like a CSA, because it gets you engaged in cooking and taking care of yourself, and it creates community between you and whichever farm that you're doing. So yeah, Cropthorn is really great. I often use Clippers Organics, and there's a new one that's at Hastings Market that I just started coming across this year called Sage and Harrow or something.
Oh, okay.
I can't exactly
we'll
remember. We'll double check
notes.
and put it in the notes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just, and I didn't want to put you on the spot with that, but there really are. We're so spoiled with choice here in BC. I had on the podcast yesterday Veronique Campbell out of the UBC farm. She looks after the UBC farm, and she's from Quebec. I'm from Nova Scotia. So what we're used to seeing 12 months of the year, or even in traditional farming months or seasons, is very different to what we get out here. I mean, the plethora of products that we have available to us. I'm sure with yourself coming from
Edmonton,
Alberta, like the exact same. Like obviously,
it's amazing.
It's just, it really truly is. It defines abundant out here, and that's why I think we're so lucky we have the opportunity to really put ourselves on the map with the food that we naturally produce, but then also the talent of people like yourself that we can do with those food items.
Absolutely.
Talking about the food and what we have here available to us, how does it work? Like, walk myself and listeners through, how does it work for you to create a menu for a pop-up dinner? Like, what inspires you? Where do you take inspiration from? Are you looking at cookbooks? Are you looking online? Is this stuff just you have a bite of something and you see an image in your head? Like, how does it work for you creatively to lay out a menu for a given event? And I'm sure they vary event to event,
of course.
But generally speaking, how does the inspiration process work for you to create a dish?
I tend to do very ingredient focused cooking. I tend to focus on vegetables also. So I often will be at the market and I'll be talking to all my farmers and being like, hey, what's up?
What's up, farmers?
And just seeing what's around. You do get a general, after you've been here for a while, you get a general idea of what's going to be in season at what time. So if I'm planning ahead, then I'm like, well, in the spring, I'm going to have nettles and these and fiddleheads and asparagus. So that's what we're going to focus the menu on. So I do very seasonal and ingredient focused cooking. I often try to not have things super set in stone until a couple weeks before events, so that if something isn't in season, then you can
adapt.
I can switch it up and be at the market and be like, oh my God, this radicchio is amazing. So I think it's important to have that flexibility in how we eat also, and to recognize that even though you might want that strawberry in January, that it's probably not going to be very good.
Yeah.
So just save the strawberry eating until they're in season, and then focus on that at that time. So start at the farmer's market, create dishes, get inspiration from the people growing the food because they know it the best. And also, it depends on the customers, it depends on the event that I'm doing. For Juice Bar, it was very like almost selfish, where I was like, I'm just going to do this because I
Yeah.
want it. But then, people would come up to me because it was an open kitchen. They'd be like, hey, what if you made this? And I would do it, because why not?
Hmm.
You want to engage with people and if I'm doing a catering for the supper club or something like that, then I get inspiration. I talk to the customers, I get inspiration from them, from their travels or what they really like, and then try and focus the menu around that.
If you were to cook lunch for you and I today,
Mm-hmm.
now we are in the beginning of the year, so it's pretty bare out there.
Yeah.
A lot of, I'm assuming, like root vegetables would be
Yeah.
prominent and available to us right now. But if you were going to make lunch today, what would you make? And give me an idea of like seasonings and stuff. Like, where do you go? Like, is there a type of cuisine from around the world that you use? Like, you borrow their seasonings from? Like, what would be lunch, and what would that look like for you and I today?
As far as like seasonings or direction of food, I've been pretty lucky in the sense that I've worked with a lot of different chefs from different parts of the world, and I have a lot of training in different avenues that aren't necessarily very Eurocentric or
Right.
like traditional. So what would I make right now? Like what's in my fridge? Or
No, if
if I
you
could
could,
get
if you could
anything.
go to the farmer's market right now, like if we hit pause and you had
Yeah.
90 minutes to go purchase something from the farmer's market, come back and whip up a lunch for you and I, what would it be?
I would probably
Again, putting you on the spot here, but actually, I'm actually really hungry, so this is gonna like
so
really serve me well. I'm
it'll
just gonna sit here in my
it'll
mind's eye.
I'm pretty focused in the winter on like legumes
Okay.
and grains and that type of
Yeah. Have
situation.
you
Like
ever started? Sorry, finish your thought. Sorry.
Cedar Island Farm is really great for grains, and
Okay.
then I use grain
Yeah. I was gonna say
for
grain.
the chickpeas and the
Yeah.
lentils, and
So good.
they're amazing,
Those
and their
chickpeas are
product
unreal.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
I really like sprouting their legumes because
Oh, okay.
they're not aged for or stored for long periods of
Mm-hmm.
time, so you can sprout them very easily, and it kind of makes, especially with the little French lentils, it
Yeah.
makes them quite sweeter, but also more nutrient efficient for
Oh,
you to
cool.
digest.
I had
So
no idea. We've had the girls from Grain on the show, and I love their product, and we always support them because I think it's
yeah,
so great. It's
yeah,
delicious, and they're
they're
supporting.
lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're lovely, and they're supporting Canadian farmers, which is great. So,
absolutely.
can I assume we're gonna have some pulses and grains then?
Yeah, like if I had, a week to prepare lunch, then I would sprout you some
Okay.
lentils, and blanch them, probably marinate them into a like warm salad. Um,
Yum.
I've taken some cheese making courses,
Okay.
so I'd make you like a fresh chev or something
Beautiful.
and just eat that with flatbread.
Ooh, so good.
That's it.
So good.
That's all you need.
For those that are people that are listening and they want to get into, they keep hearing about sprouting things like grains, but they find it very daunting. Can you quickly walk us through this? I don't want this to be like a how-to podcast. I apologize,
Yeah.
but
No, it's
I
all
just feel
good.
like there's some content here that some of our listeners could really benefit from. So,
Yeah. And engaging.
is sprouting, should it be a daunting thing, or is it easy for you and I and everyone else to get into?
I think it's pretty easy. What I do, for example, let's talk about the lentils because I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the easiest one and it's the fastest. So if you get the French lentils from Grain,
Yes, shout out grain.
you soak them overnight. Make sure there's enough water because they'll absorb some. And then you drain it, and I lay it flat on like a sheet tray or something like that with a cloth underneath
Mm-hmm.
and let them do their thing and continue soaking it twice a day for 15 minutes.
Okay.
And you just drain it, lay it flat, soak it, drain it, lay it flat until the sprouts are long enough. And then it'll take like 3 to 5 days depending on
Like temperature and
temperature
environment, all those
and
things.
humidity and
Yeah.
all the different things
Science.
all the science and like how the lentils are feeling. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But after they start tasting a bit sweeter, you can eat them raw, but I do find that they can be a little bit starchy. So I usually just like lightly blanch them for like 5 seconds in some hot water or saute them.
Very cool. Great tip.
So,
and not daunting tips at all.
Yeah, it's super easy, and it's easier for your body to digest them and get nutrients from them. So
yeah, it sounds delicious. A little bit sweeter would be great. I'm assuming with your work, you've been privy to and have watched trends come and go in food, both in restaurants that you've worked in traditionally, and then obviously with the dinners that you facilitate with your business. What are you seeing right now, or what do you foresee coming up ahead of us as trends in this space? Ones that you think are maybe a flash in the pan, and ones that you think are really here to stay when it comes to food?
Well, talking to my comrade chefs, I think what they're most interested in doing is kind of refocusing on their roots as individuals.
Okay.
So I think there will be more people doing events that are closer to their upbringing, but with their modern Vancouver Pacific Northwest ingredients, but more traditional styles. And I also think that people are engaging more in like foraging and in engaging with their environment.
Right.
So this is just like what I hope, but I hope people are going to focus more on food that is like farm focused and personal, and kind of moving in a direction that necessarily is more environmentally friendly and supportive of community.
I like that. Do you find with that idea, with your menus that you curate, you're at times, or maybe all the time, trying to kind of tell a story with the menus and with the plates, or are you just more concerned about producing products that taste good and people like? Like, is there a balance there, or can you do both at the same time, or do you even concern yourself with the first?
I do think telling a story is important. Usually my stories are based around a farmer or a technique that I learned from a chef, or an experience I had on a trip where I'm recreating something from the memory of that thing.
Right.
Or I talked to my farmer and he's like, oh, I got this seed from this farmer in Japan and we got this squash. This happened when I worked at Farmer's Apprentice. And we grew this squash and we didn't know what it was going to be. And it's this like giant weird thing. And we think it cross-pollinated with those guys. And kind of representing that squash and that story by using Japanese ingredients, for example.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah. And it's just like creating a narrative and engaging people. I don't always tell people the narrative. There's always a narrative in my brain, but some of the Gen Pop they don't necessarily care, right? So the story is always there. There's always influences. I think even when people aren't really thinking about it, when they're making food, they're telling a story in a certain way. Even if it was just the story of their day when they walked into the fridge and they're like, okay, we gotta use this radicchio.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do with it?
Radicchio keeps coming up. Are you a big radicchio? I feel like you should have a radicchio tattoo.
Well, maybe I should get one. Maybe you're right. This time of year, there's not a lot of greens and lettuces that are grown in the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And radicchio is the only one that's around. So
It's gangster.
It's a tough one,
Yeah,
you know.
it is. Yeah.
So it's been on my menus a lot lately, which
Okay.
is why it comes up, because I'm like, nobody wants to talk about beets, you know.
Right.
Like,
I love beets. I could
so
eat beets every meal.
yeah, it
Um,
is great.
Help me understand how you came to be, not necessarily what you're doing today, but how you even came to be in Vancouver. Like you said, you grew up in Edmonton. Obviously, you worked in the industry there. You have contacts and friends there that are in the business, seemingly doing well with their restaurants, their brick and mortars. Why did you decide to come west?
Um, I've always really liked the West Coast. Edmonton is really great, but it's really cold for a really long period of time.
So cold.
And you're kind of trapped indoors for long periods of time. And I think for like my health and well-being that I wanted to be on the coast because you could be more active. And there was just some more restaurants in Vancouver that I
Right.
wanted to work at. You know, I was interested in some more learning. So I wanted to experience the industry here. And I really love living in Vancouver. My partner's parents also moved to Victoria, so that helped a little bit
Right.
because we would go visit them.
It's beautiful over there.
Yeah, and it is really nice. We lived in Victoria for the first 10 months. We moved out to the coast
Okay.
and worked there for a little bit, but then
Where did you work in Victoria, if you don't mind me asking?
I worked at Stage Wine Bar and Little Jumbo.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I haven't been to either. Should I go?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah?
They're pretty good. I'm actually one of the people that I worked with at Stage Wine Bar is doing a very cool industry project called Bar Venner.
Bar Venner?
Yeah,
Okay.
where once a month he does an event and only invites people from the industry
Okay.
and to try different wines that they don't normally get in Victoria. So he comes to Vancouver to get them.
Cool.
So that the industry people there can try different wines or different beverages, and he gets different guest chefs in every time.
Will you be guesting?
I will be going to Victoria at some point. We haven't exactly set a date yet.
Okay, cool.
But I
Keep
think
on the
we were
lookout for
talking
that.
about April maybe. So
Oh, cool. Well, we'll definitely support that and blow that
Yeah.
up on media. And
yeah,
that's very cool.
yeah. So and supporting the community too.
Why not the East Coast? Did you mention the coast? Did you just feel like Vancouver was busier, better as far as the scene? Or was it like when you say coast, obviously I'm just thinking like water, ocean.
I think the West Coast is preferable because of temperature. Also, like I was
Right.
trying to escape
Yeah,
the long
yeah,
winters
yeah.
And the growing seasons here are a lot better.
Mhm.
I'm also interested in like permaculture and gardening, and you have a lot more opportunity to do those things
Yeah,
here.
definitely.
Whereas in the winter in the East Coast, it's not necessarily the same.
It's not. Sorry, I was laughing because Chloe's just voicing her opinion on
Just
her distaste for cold weather as well. She prefers it out here.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had I've recorded a few podcasts over here now at Martin's place. Shout out Martin, my neighbor. And Chloe is generally always here,
Yeah.
but she usually goes back to her bed but I think
Ignores us. but
there's something
she
about you,
feels the
Heather.
love.
She's
I'm
connected.
a dog whisperer.
You are her dog whisperer. This show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Heather, 2 questions that I ask every single guest. So I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but
It's
I'm
tricky.
confident you can do it. So the first question I have for you is the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. So I need from you 1 to 6 things that you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to experience in their lives, whether it's a meal you've eaten, doesn't have to be food related, but a meal you've eaten, a trip you've taken, a concert you've been to, a piece of art you've looked at, a book you've read, etc., etc. What would be 1 to 6 items that you feel like our listeners have to do?
Okay. So we touched on this earlier, but I think everyone should get a CSA for a year. Not necessarily, you don't have to commit to a year. Like Harvest Community Foods on Union Street does a weekly or bi-weekly CSA that you don't have to commit to for long periods of time. You just sign up for the week. But I really like the idea of committing to a particular farm for an entire year and seeing what they produce throughout the entire year. And it'll change your perspective on eating, I think.
Yeah, and it's just fun. Like you said earlier, it's really fun to get that box. And it's like getting a Christmas gift every week. You're like, oh, what's inside? And it can be,
you're like,
what am I going to do with this?
Exactly. One of my friends did a CSA and she got sunchokes and she sent me a picture and was just like, what is this thing? It looks weird, but
you're like, they're delicious.
Exactly.
Do this with it.
Like, just roast it. Yeah. You're going to love it.
So good.
So
I love sunchokes.
Yeah.
Fantastic one. Any others?
I think that everyone needs to vote.
Ooh, I like that.
Getting
political.
To get engaged in our politics, because there's so much apathy, especially in the hospitality industry. Like, when voting time comes around, I'm in the kitchen being like, you're gonna vote, aren't you? Are you gonna vote? And,
oh, you're pushing it.
And usually the squad just isn't interested, and or they don't know and they haven't looked into politics. But I think it's really important for especially young people to start getting engaged and making a difference when it comes to our policies, because it's important for our well-being and our future.
Yeah.
And especially in Vancouver,
100%.
we have a lot of like controversial stuff that happens in this area, and engaging in it is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good one. I guess what's another one? I think everyone should go to Asador at Zabari in Spain.
Ooh, where about in Spain?
It's south of San Sebastian in like a little mountain town.
Okay.
And he cooks everything over fire, and everything is also very ingredient focused. And I think that's probably why I like it so much. But he's a very creative person, and it's just in this tiny little town that has like little cobblestone roads.
Beautiful.
And there's like sheep
everywhere
with their bells dinging everywhere. And it's kind of like going to food church, you know, like it's like this
kind of
beautiful building and with really high ceilings and using really seemingly simple but very involved techniques to cook things and like really respect the ingredients, which I think is really great.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very hungry, and you describing that just sounds delicious.
Yeah, Asador at Zabari. And also just, I guess another one could just be like travel and engage in other cultures, talk to other people, experience.
What sticks out for you as far as places you've been to? Obviously Spain, with their food, the culture there.
Spain is amazing. Excuse me. Spain is amazing. I really love Japan. Vietnam is a crazy country to travel in, but the food and just for perspective of a different lifestyle and way of living is really important, I think, for people to engage in. I traveled quite a bit in South America as well, and so just like pick anywhere, it's beautiful. So I think whatever you can connect to and engage in as far as travel goes. Also, like, I travel to eat a lot of different things.
Yeah, as most people in this space.
Yeah, so
you learn so much that way, though.
I think it is the most accessible way to engage in culture if there's language barriers or other things like that. And it just gives you a different perspective on how to eat also.
I love that. Did you have any others you wanted to add? Those are all really good.
I think everyone should go on a foraging workshop with Museum Eats.
Ooh, yeah. Plug. So, I like that.
I'm totally plugging.
Yeah, no, do it. This is your space.
Camille Flanjak is a very amazing human, and her perspective on going into wilderness and engaging with different plants and mushrooms. And she talks a lot about sustainability and our engagement with Indigenous culture and a lot of different things. So I think it's quite eye-opening for a lot of people.
Sounds amazing. I've never done anything like it, and I'm super intrigued.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask. Yeah, I definitely will. I'm going to ask when and how often do they happen? How can people find out about it? How can they engage with either yourself or with, Camille?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Museum Eats, it's very seasonal,
Mhm.
her workshops. So in the fall, there's a lot of mushroom workshops. And then in the spring, she does more like identification of greens and mosses and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You can search her blog spot, and usually that's how you engage
Cool.
with her workshops. She also posts it on her Instagram.
Nice. Are you involved with that in any way, shape, or form? Museum Eats?
Camille and I collaborate on events fairly regularly. And she also works for Soul Food Farm, so
okay.
we engage that way as well.
Nice.
But we've just worked together off and on for years and years. But I think her project is really progressive and important and awesome for people to work with.
I think it sounds amazing. So if you are local, get out to a Museum Eats event and learn what this terroir offers, just truly organically from the soil, which is so cool. Did you have any more? I feel like you're on a roll here. I don't want to stop your thunder that you got going on.
Any more? I don't know. I think that might be it.
Yeah, you did great. Next I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yet. So kind of like a bucket list thing, if you will. A meal you haven't eaten, a book you haven't read, a trip you haven't taken, something that you haven't experienced in Heather's life yet that you want to experience. What would those 1 to 6 items be?
I want to travel more.
Okay.
Which is always a little bit tricky. I'm kind of trying to figure out ways that I could like travel and do events maybe or something like that.
Could you like stage somewhere and then like execute events?
Maybe. I don't know.
Where when I say where would you want to go? What comes to mind right away? What pops up in your mind's eye?
Well, pretty much anywhere. Like but I haven't spent much time in Europe, so I would really like to go to Italy and spend some time in France and all of that. But I also want to go visit my friends in Tasmania and go to Southeast Asia and go to India and, and those are more trips. I don't think those would be work trips, but even just working in different cities in Canada would be interesting, I think, and engaging in those communities as well. Yeah,
maybe get you out to Halifax some point.
That'd be fun.
Go in the summer. I gotta say, all my blue nosers, we call people from Nova Scotia, they're called blue nosers. I don't know if you knew that, but all my blue nosers who are listening, I apologize, but Nova Scotia just isn't super fun in the winter. But in the summer, man, I love it out there. It's beautiful. And again, like abundance of products to work with.
For sure.
It's really,
and very different products from this coast.
And very different, yeah.
So that would be really fun.
Yeah, like looking at what's going on out there now with some of the wineries that they're doing and cideries as well, which is really, really cool to see. Sorry, again, I interjected. You're on a flow there. No, it's
all good. So there's travel. I need to get better at work-life balance. I tend to overschedule myself sometimes.
Okay. What do you use for that? How do you, so say, for example, I say to you, Heather, let's go have sushi next Tuesday at 3. Do you just say, yep, sure, Brad? Or what is your method to keeping track of Heather's life?
Well, I use my phone calendar for scheduling most of the time. I think my problem is that I just like interact with all these different people that want to do all these different things, and I get excited about it, and then I'm like, I want to squeeze them all in, and then I'm
Right.
working for like 2 weeks straight, and then, but I'm also quite good at, if I'm working quite a lot for a month, then the next month is a little more chill, and I'll schedule myself less.
Right.
But just kind of like refining that and kind of creating more of a flow for existential eating where it's not all or nothing, you know?
Right. Which can be extremely draining.
Yeah.
And not necessarily bred for longevity.
Yeah. But I'm getting a lot better at it. So
cool.
I just get excited.
Having that self-awareness is step one,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, of course.
Any other haven't yets?
I need to find an apartment in Vancouver that's dog friendly.
Yeah.
So I can have a dog.
Oh, maybe Martin will move out of this place.
Yeah.
But maybe you'd have to keep Chloe though.
Yeah.
That's
okay. She's sweet. But
Martin, if you want to move out, Heather will take this from you.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, looking for that. If anyone has hot tips, let me know.
Yeah, hit up Heather for your hot dog tips. Not hot dogs, but hot dog tips.
Yeah. Perfect.
Any other haven't yets?
I just want to continue creating a community and working and meeting new and different people to work with and to do events with and to support, and kind of finding ways to support that community better, whether it's working together, making a food product line, or doing more events, or I don't know. We'll see. Maybe getting a space to do events.
Ooh,
maybe something like that.
That's cool.
I don't know.
Do you know? Sorry, finish your thought.
I'm kind of in the midst of like sorting out the direction that I want to take existential eating, and it is very based on the community and what everyone wants to do together, basically, right. Which makes it a little challenging, but I think supporting that and nurturing that and seeing where it takes me is a haven't yet.
Cool. Where is existential eating again in your mind's eye? If you had a magic wand 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? All those things.
You know, it's changed so much even in the past year that I'm not exactly sure, you know? I'm just kind of like seeing where it's going right now. So ideally, having a space or working with different restaurants to use their spaces to help them pay their rents or something like that. I'd like to see it a little more established and well known, and I'd like to see the people that I'm working with being successful, working for themselves, as opposed to just like doing one-off events,
right?
And working for other people at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Just continuing spreading the love and growing the community.
Yeah, we'll see where it takes me.
Before I let you go, I know you mentioned your website at the beginning, which is existentialeating.com. Mm-hmm. But if people do want to reach out and engage with you, how best do they do that? Is it via email? Is it via your website? Is it Instagram, Twitter? How can they touch base with you and learn more about existential eating and programs that you're executing?
You can contact me through Instagram. Mm-hmm. On the website, there is the email and also, which is existentialeating@gmail.com.
Love it.
And yeah, usually those are the two best ways. I'm pretty good at responding to emails and messages. So yes. If you have any questions or if you want to collaborate or any or
you have no idea what to do with sunchokes.
Yeah. Just give me a shout and I'll help you out.
Or
So,
if you need help sprouting some pulses or
yeah.
grains,
Yeah.
Heather is your girl.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. I want to say thank you, Heather, so much for coming on to the show. It, as I mentioned at the start of the show, time is the most valuable thing we have. So thank you for giving me 54 minutes and 48, 49, 50 seconds of your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. The cool thing with this podcast is I now consider you someone in my circle. I now consider you a friend. And I already, as I'm listening to you talk about what you're doing and why you do what you do, I'm already thinking about people that I want to connect you with. And
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about this podcast is I meet so many special people that may not ever meet, but you're all doing very similar things and for similar reasons. And I feel like there's so much power again in bringing everyone together for one common theme. So thank you so much for giving your time to myself today and also the listeners as well. I'm sure I'll take a bunch from this episode, but I also want to thank you for challenging the status quo. It's very easy to, especially in this industry, to kind of, squash your dreams and squash your visions and just do what everyone else is doing. So watching you do what you do and learning more about you now motivates me, and I'm sure it's going to motivate a bunch of people that are listening as well. So thank you so much for, again, challenging the status quo and going out there and putting yourself out, which at times can be very scary and very stressful and risky. So kudos to you for doing that. And I will do whatever I can with this show, and I'm sure the listeners will as well, to support you in all your projects. So well done. Amazing. And keep it up.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Chloe, for being
gone.
she's gone now, but being so welcoming to Heather as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as you do week after week. I thoroughly, thoroughly appreciate and love all of you. You know what to do. Until next time, guys, be good and do good. That's it. We did it.
We did it. All right.
Thank you.